The NBA draft can be a blessing or curse for any team. Sometimes the number one pick can turn a whole franchise around, but other times they end up disappointing and someone else who was drafted worse turns out to be the real lottery pick. So today we want to discuss 10 NBA players who should have been the number one draft pick. And to kick things off, we have to take a look at Nikola Jokic, because right now he is at the peak of his career. What started as a number 41 draft pick developed into one of the most dominant players in the entire NBA. Jokic has won 2 MVP titles and almost averages a triple-double this season with 24.5 points, 11.8 rebounds and 9.8 assists per game. But most importantly, he won a championship in 2023. Back when he was drafted, he was lazy and undeserving of a higher draft pick. In fact, he wasn't even at the draft when his name was called, but at his home in Serbia sleeping. But over the years, he developed a great work ethic, and by using his strengths to the limit, he showed everyone that he should have been drafted first in 2014. But Nikola Jokic isn't the only player who was estimated wrongly. There are NBA legends like Kobe Bryant, Luka Doncic or even Michael Jordan who weren't selected as the number one draft pick. So let's start with Kobe. When Kobe was drafted, he was selected as the 13th pick and immediately traded to the LA Lakers in exchange for 𝙆𝙗𝙁 𝙁𝙗. This was an interesting decision given that 𝙆𝙗𝙁 was a solid center and Kobe was, well, just a teenager. However, as we now know, was this one of, if not the best decision by the Lakers. It wasn't weird that Kobe was selected as number 13 because he was good but not great. But I guess some people knew about his unique strength, the Mamba mentality. He wasn't afraid to take shots and always practiced more than his teammates. Ultimately, Kobe became an NBA legend and in retrospect should have been the number one draft pick in 1996. But do you know who else was underestimated? Yeah, me. I went undrafted because no one believed in my crazy handles and incredible dunks. So help me out here by subscribing to the channel. But now let's move on with Luka Doncic. Because this might be the most questionable case. Luka was a star in Europe. He won the EuroLeague's Rising Star Award twice and an MVP as a teenager. Doncic dominated in Spain and Slovenia, even winning a championship for the national team. But despite his undeniable talent, some people called him not athletic enough and thought that his dominance would not translate to the NBA. They were biased because he was a European player. But Luka proved them wrong. The players traded before him, DeAndre Ayton and Marvin Bagley, turned out good but not great, while Luka won Rookie of the Year award and quickly developed into the Mavericks' new star. Just check this out. This year, Doncic is averaging 32.4 points, 8.6 rebounds and 8 assists. That's insane and makes every team who had the chance of drafting him look stupid. But not every player is already at a star level when he is drafted. Sometimes they get drafted as average role players and only years later develop into all-star talents. That's exactly what happened with Giannis Antetokounmpo. When he was drafted with the 15th pick in 2013, he was a shy role player and barely spoke English. Also, just look at his frame. This guy was skinny. So Giannis continuously worked his way up. He added a lot of muscle, strongly enhanced his drive to the basket, and even improved his mid-range shot. Ultimately, Giannis became an unstoppable force, winning the MVP 2 consecutive times and also winning a championship in 2021. Nobody could have ever expected that this shy Greek kid would develop into an NBA legend. If you are still here, then make sure to watch until the end, because we still have to talk about legends like Michael Jordan, Dirk Nowitzki or Kevin Durant. Let's start with KD. Sometimes the impact of new NBA players is unpredictable. Nobody can expect a number 40 pick to become an MVP caliber player. But many people are baffled when a player who absolutely dominated in college is not selected first. Take Kevin Durant for example. He was an almost 7-foot guy who could dribble and shoot the ball like a smaller point guard. And scouts knew it. But still, a guy named Greg Oden was traded before him. But only did he never make any impact in the NBA, especially due to injuries. So now the Houston Rockets looked stupid giving up Kevin Durant, while the Supersonics, later OKC, enjoyed their newly acquired superstar. KD ultimately won an MVP title, has career averages of over 27 points and won 2 championships with the Warriors. Even though many people called this a villain move and undeserved rings, his greatness as a player is undeniable. But there's an even more special guy who wasn't drafted first, and his name is Michael Jordan. MJ was drafted with the 3rd overall pick in the 1984 NBA draft by the Chicago Bulls and went on to become what many people call the GOAT. Looking back, it seems ludicrous that he was only drafted 3rd, although at that time there was some justification to it. The Houston Rockets took 𝘾𝐼𝐻 𝙁𝙗𝙁 with the 1st overall pick. The center was considered the best player in college, and size was always seen as a safer gamble. With the 2nd pick, the Portland Trail Blazers chose center Sam Bowie. Bowie was a hot prospect coming out of college, and his combination of height and skill were tantalizing. 𝘾𝐼𝐻 became a star player, but Michael Jordan became, well, Michael Jordan. We're not gonna discuss his accolades as they could take up a whole nother video. But it's safe to say that Jordan proved that the 2 big men drafted before him weren't a match for him. But if you think this was the most impressive case, then you might be wrong, because there's another GOAT on this list. Not necessarily the GOAT of basketball, but definitely the GOAT of shooting. Because Stephen Curry also wasn't a number 1 draft pick. And like with Jordan, this was reasonable back then. Curry was a good shooter, but he was skinny and quite small. In college, he showed what he could do, but he didn't seem like a prodigy. Fast forward many years later, Curry acquired muscle mass, perfected his dribbling, and we don't have to talk about his shooting ability. Finally, he won the MVP title twice, stacked up 4 championships, and showed everyone that he is lethal when the ball gets in his hands. Steph made everyone wonder why he wasn't drafted first. Congrats if you made it this far, we have reached our top 3. So for now, you need to listen carefully, because our last player has something special. But now let's start with Dirk Nowitzki, because he is one of the most important big men in NBA history. Dirk was selected 9th overall in 1998, because there were 2 concerns. First, he was European, and second, he wasn't your typical 7-footer. He didn't just stand in the paint and try to slam down dunks. He was a shooter. But what started with skepticism ended up becoming his biggest strength. When Dirk went for a fadeaway jump shot, nobody was able to contest it. The good thing, he hit his jumpers. Ultimately, Dirk completely changed the way big men were viewed in the NBA. Nowitzki won an MVP in 2007, but he'll always be remembered first for leading his Mavericks to an NBA title against LeBron's Miami Heat in 2011. Hitting a game-winning shot and rightfully named Finals MVP. That ring was the icing on the cake of an already brilliant career. For our number 2, we have Kawhi Leonard, because he was selected as number 15 in 2011. The draft class was packed with talent, with players like Kyrie Irving, who was number 1 by the way, Klay Thompson or Jimmy Butler. But still, in my opinion, Kawhi would have deserved the number 1 spot. Kyrie has insane handles, Klay can have scorching hot shooting, and Butler goes ham in the playoffs. But Kawhi is the most complete player. This guy is the definition of a quiet kid. He doesn't talk much, but he lets his actions do the talking. Not only did he develop into an offensive threat and defensive brick wall, but he ultimately led the Spurs and the Raptors to a championship, which no other player of his draft class was able to do. I know Kyrie and Klay also won championships, but they didn't lead their team, so yeah, Kawhi should have been selected first. Now you are almost done, because for our last one we have Kevin Garnett. Number 21 played 21 seasons in the NBA, making 15 All-Star squads and 9 All-NBA teams. KG was selected 5th overall, but definitely deserved the number 1 spot in the 1995 NBA draft. Why? Because Garnett is a mindset warrior. We know him for trash talking his opponents and for yelling anything is possible after winning a championship with the Celtics. This championship was important to KG, because after 12 years of playoff drought with the Timberwolves, People were doubting his ability to clutch up when it matters most. After this ring, KG was relieved, and in retrospect, he should have been a number 1 draft pick. But sometimes terrible things happen, like Michael Jordan's opponent Len Bias, who died after he was drafted. This guy also could have been a number 1 draft pick. But there was one day in the NBA that was even scarier, so check out this video to get to know more about it. Seriously, just click it. I'll see you there.